There is a warning that was given years ago, out in the open, on camera, and almost nobody connected the dots until now.
I believe that they gave me a raw deal because this industry is a monster. It's the same monster that these Me Too was trying to tell you about. But they hate the monster for how it, and I hate that monster for how it eats. But my God, man, it's the same monster.
That is Dave Chappelle, and he is not talking about a film. He is not being poetic. He is describing a machine, one that swallows people whole. And one of the first people that machine went after...
Throughout the years, black artists have been taken advantage of. It's time now that we have to put a stop to this incredible injustice. And like Mrs. Sharpton was saying, people from James Brown to Sammy Davis Jr., some of the real pioneers that inspired me to be the entertainer that I am.
Michael Jackson named names. He called out executives. He went on a stage in front of the world and pointed the finger directly at the people cashing checks off his back. And then, almost immediately, the story around him changed forever. He knew. He told us. And nobody believed him. But here's what nobody is connecting. Dave Chappelle's warning, Michael Jackson's knowledge, and the names that kept showing up in rooms that looked a lot like Jeffrey Epstein's guest list are all pointing at the exact same monster. Stay with me, because once you see this, you cannot unsee it. Let's start with something that gets overlooked every single time people talk about Michael Jackson. The conversation never actually started with scandals. It started with money. In the early 2000s, Michael Jackson did something that very, very few artists at his level had ever done. He went public, not in a carefully managed press statement, not through a spokesperson or a publicist. He stood on a stage in London, looked at a crowd of thousands, and began dismantling the system that had made him, and several others, fantastically wealthy off the backs of black artists.
And it's been, the record companies really do conspire against their artists. They steal, they cheat, they do whatever they can, especially the black artists.
Think about the weight of that moment. The biggest pop star on the planet, a man who had sold over 400 million records worldwide, standing in front of a global audience and accusing an entire industry of theft. That is not a crazy man ranting. That is a man with line-by-line knowledge of his own contracts, telling you exactly what those contracts actually said. And then he went further.
Yes, and it's Tommy Mottola, the president of the record division. He is a meme, he's a racist, and he's very devilish.
He named the president of Sony's record division on camera in front of witnesses. He called him devilish. That is not metaphor. Michael Jackson, a man who is deeply spiritual, used that word with full intention. Now here is the question you should be asking. Why does this matter in 2026? Because everything that happened to Michael Jackson after that moment, every allegation, every headline, every tabloid nickname, every career-destroying media cycle, happened after that speech, not before, after. And if you think that's a coincidence, you haven't been paying attention to how the machine actually works. Dave Chappelle figured this out. He figured it out because it almost happened to him too.
When I quit my show, they said I was crazy. What was crazy about it? I just didn't want to do it anymore.
And everybody calls me crazy. You know, I mean, it was
people,
just...
You're hearing on the news things like he's gone crazy, which never sounded, that didn't sound right, you know? And
well, you know, maybe I know stuff people don't want me to talk about. So
right.
we don't want other people to believe. So they'll call me crazy. But it was a weird thing to get called crazy. At first it was scary. And then now I feel like it's liberating. Like, I feel free, like I can just say what I want to do. They already call me crazy.
There it is, the playbook. Step 1, find someone who's talking too much. Step 2, don't debate them. Don't challenge them on the facts. Just attach a label. Crazy, unstable, wacko. Once that label sticks, you never have to address a single word they said, because the audience has already been told this is the testimony of a lunatic. Dave called it. He survived it. Michael Jackson did not. To understand why specific celebrities were terrified of Michael Jackson, not uncomfortable, not awkward, genuinely terrified, you need to understand the geography of the world Michael moved through. Michael Jackson was not just a pop star, he was an institution. He was inside rooms that most people will never have access to. He had relationships with executives, politicians, royals, and power brokers going back to childhood. By the time he was an adult and a global force, he had decades of knowledge about how this industry really worked from the inside. And in those rooms, at those parties, behind those closed doors, things happened that were never meant to reach the public. Dave Chappelle describes the monster as an industry that builds you up to chew you out. That's half the picture. The other half is what the monster requires of you while you're inside it. What you have to witness, what you have to go along with, what you have to pretend you didn't see. Michael Jackson saw it all. And what we know from Diddy's world, which is now very much a matter of federal record, is that those rooms looked a specific way.
So we had a laundry list of items that needed to be with us at all times. You know, we'd have their marijuana joints on us. We would have the mushrooms on us. We had a kind of a Diddy pack is what they would call it. And we would keep a satchel on us, and that's what we would have in that satchel. And they were referred to me as Wild King Nights. And what a Wild King Night was when him and a guest would go to a hotel room or be at his home, his bedroom, and they would have intimate gatherings. I would have to go and prep that hotel room, which consisted of baby oil Astroglide, candles, incense, liquor, lights, tons of toiletries, drugs.
This is not gossip. This is sworn testimony from someone who worked inside that operation. And here's what makes it relevant to Michael Jackson specifically. These were the same circles, the same parties, the same industry events, the same world where Michael was a permanent fixture. Now ask yourself, if a man who worked for Diddy says he was personally responsible for deleting incriminating footage from his boss's phones, what does that tell you about how careful these people were about what they allowed witnesses to know? And what does it tell you about how they felt about someone like Michael, someone with memory, platform, and courage, who had been in those rooms and clearly was not afraid to talk? He could not talk about it. He kept saying that. And in the moments he came close, the moments he started to push past the line, the machine pushed back harder every single time. Now this is where it gets very specific and very dark. Jeffrey Epstein's name is not a rumor anymore. It is a matter of public record that he ran a trafficking network for decades, that he had a private island, that he had a black book full of powerful names, and that he died in federal custody under circumstances that no serious person believes were straightforward. What is also public record is that many of the people in his orbit overlapped directly with the entertainment world Michael Jackson inhabited. The same red carpets, the same charities, the same fundraisers, the same Hollywood inner circle. Now, Michael was never connected to Epstein. Let me be absolutely clear about that. What we're connecting is the network, the world of powerful, wealthy, connected people who operated in the same spaces. And the reason certain names on that list had every reason to be uncomfortable around a man like Michael Jackson. Think about what Michael actually had. He had a memory. He had decades of receipts, metaphorically speaking. He had the kind of cultural credibility that if he ever decided to sit down and start naming names the way he names Tommy Mottola, the world would have had no choice but to listen. Dave Chappelle saw the same dynamic from the outside.
Media, man, it is one hell of an entity. It really can have you thinking that the bad people are good and the good people are bad.
That line, that specific line, sit with it. Because what we've seen with Epstein, with Diddy, with Harvey Weinstein, is that the media protected these people for years, decades, not by ignoring them, but by actively redirecting attention toward people who were getting too close to the truth. Michael Jackson was getting too close to the truth, not because he was investigating anyone specifically, but because he was one of the few people on the planet who had both the access and the platform to blow the whole thing open if he ever decided to. And then there is Oprah. Oprah Winfrey is arguably one of the most powerful media figures in American history. She has built an empire on the language of compassion, truth, and upliftment. But let's trace what Oprah actually did where Michael Jackson is concerned. In 1993, when the first allegations were flying and no case had been proven, Oprah was already cultivating distance. She interviewed Michael, yes, but on her terms, in a frame that had him defending himself before the world rather than celebrating his art. Then fast forward to 2019.
But for me, this moment transcends Michael Jackson. It is much bigger than any one person. This is a moment in time that allows us to see this societal corruption. It's like a scourge on humanity.
She hosted the After Neverland special. She sat across from accusers whose stories, by the way, were later riddled with provable inconsistencies and timeline contradictions. She gave them a full hour of primetime television and treated every single word as verified gospel. She said, on camera, that if people found out what she and the documentary maker were doing, they would go to jail. Let that land.
If they ever found out what we were doing, he and I would go to jail.
What exactly was she doing that she thought was jail-worthy? She said it herself, out loud, and the media just moved past it. Then, Michael Jackson dies, and suddenly Oprah is distancing herself, acting like they were strangers.
I did not consider myself to be a friend of his, and I didn't want to be one of those people showing up just because it's Michael Jackson. So no, I didn't, because I was not a friend. I was someone who had interviewed him, and at the time really had a lot of compassion for him. And
those feelings about him changed over the years?
The feelings didn't change. In terms of my sense of compassion for him, what I felt was a sense of sadness. I never knew, what the truth was.
Changed. Her feelings changed. The woman who invited him onto the biggest platform in television, who built content around his image, who used his name for ratings at every turn, her feelings changed. And she can't quite say why. She just knows they changed. But here's what didn't change. Her relationship with Harvey Weinstein. For over 2 decades, Oprah and Harvey Weinstein were publicly close. Photographs, red carpets, interviews, mutual praise. When Harvey's accusers started coming forward and the Me Too movement began building into something impossible to ignore, Oprah's team said she had nothing to do with it. Except Rose McGowan, one of Harvey's accusers, went directly at Oprah publicly and said she wished Oprah were real, but she isn't. Think about what that means, coming from a woman who was there. And then look at Oprah's school in South Africa.
These are my girls. These are my girls.
A $40 million leadership academy, 152 hand-selected students, personally chosen by Oprah herself. And within its first few years, an employee charged with 13 counts of inappropriate physical conduct against girls aged 13 to 15. Then, a second scandal involving students coercing each other into silence. Then a dead newborn found on campus. The media's response? Concerned mentor trying her best. Compare that to how they handled every single whisper around Michael Jackson.
There have been many disgusting statements made recently concerning allegations of improper conduct on my part. These statements about me are totally false. I have been forced to submit to a dehumanizing and humiliating examination by the Santa Barbara County Sheriff Department and the Los Angeles Police Department earlier this week. They served a search warrant on me which allowed them to view and photograph my body, including my penis, my buttocks, my lower torso, thighs, and any other area that they wanted.
That man was strip searched. His home was raided. He was treated like a convicted criminal before a single piece of evidence had been proven, while the woman who ran a school where real children were actually harmed was handled with, quote, gloves on. The double standard is not accidental. It is structural. And Michael Jackson understood that better than almost anyone. You need to understand how the first allegation actually worked, because once you see the mechanics, you'll see the same machine running in every story that followed. A dentist in Los Angeles named Dr. Evan Chandler had a son named Jordan. He had a custody dispute, he had financial problems, and he had access to Michael Jackson through his son's friendship.
On August 2nd, 1993, dentist Dr. Evan Chandler was extracting a tooth from his own son, Jordan, when he did something unusual. Under the supervision of an attending anesthesiologist, Dr. Chandler injected his son with a dose of sodium amytal, a barbiturate. Although in pop culture it has sometimes incorrectly been called a truth serum. It is not normal to use sodium amytal to pull a tooth. In fact, it is a psychological drug with sedative and hypnotic effects.
He drugged his own child. Before getting a statement, he used a drug with hypnotic effects on a 13-year-old boy during a dental procedure, and then apparently directed the conversation. Then, and this is the critical detail, he didn't go to the police. He went to a lawyer, and he told Michael Jackson's team privately, "Give me $20 million, or this goes public." Michael said no. The father dropped the number to $1 million. Michael still said no. Then he took his son to a psychiatrist, had him describe explicit details, and went to law enforcement. The investigation found no physical evidence. The case was closed in under a year, but none of that mattered, because by then the media had already held the trial.
This man's just going to be humiliated, And I'm not going to that you will not believe this can happen. And beyond worst nightmare, I got one more record. This attorney I found, I interviewed several, and I picked the nastiest son of a I can find. Once I make that phone call, this guy's just going to destroy everybody in sight.
That is the man who started this. In his own words, recorded without his knowledge. He is not describing a father seeking justice for a child. He is describing a strategy, a demolition plan, and he is excited about it. Now here's the thing that Candace Owens, who admits she once believed Michael was guilty, eventually said out loud.
Someone pressed a button and there was a full court press effort to cancel Candace Owens by trying to convince the people that she just went crazy and anti-Semitic. Thank goodness I'm not from Hollywood. They would have institutionalized me and said that it was for my good. There are a ton of people in Hollywood who, when they have tried to speak out about things that are happening to them, have received this same treatment.
She connects her own experience directly to Michael's. She says the machine that came for him is the same machine that came for her. And she's right, not just about her and Michael, but about a pattern that has repeated itself over and over in this industry against specific kinds of people. People who know too much, people who talk. And then in 2003, exactly when Michael's war with Sony was coming to a head, another wave of accusations exploded. Think about that timing. Not in 1995, not in 2001, in 2003. Right at the moment when Michael had the most legal and financial leverage he'd ever had in his conflict with one of the most powerful entertainment corporations on earth.
What does the public actually remember from that time? What do you remember from that time? Well, we remember that Michael Jackson was wacko Jacko, that he was crazy, that he was addicted to drugs, whatever his doctor was injecting him with. Here are just some of the headlines: wacko Jacko, backo Jacko, raid, wacko, Jacko, Jacko on the attacko. I mean, this is like seared into my memory. I'm sure it's seared into your memory as well.
The nickname did what it was designed to do. It turned a human being into a cartoon. And once you're a cartoon, your words don't carry weight. Your testimony doesn't matter. Your warnings are just the ravings of a man who's lost his mind. And then within months of Michael's death in 2009, Evan Chandler, the man who started the entire first wave of allegations, the man who could have been cross-examined, the man who could have given a full account of exactly what he did and why.
Evan Chandler shot himself in the head. There were absolutely no witnesses. There was no note. And he was found by his building concierge.
No note, no witnesses. 5 months after Michael Jackson was gone, the one man who could have told the whole truth about how that first story was built died before anyone could ever ask him the questions that mattered most. Here is what most people miss when they talk about Michael Jackson's relationships with other celebrities. They look at the public moments, the award shows, the tributes, the collaborations, and they see warmth and admiration. What they don't see is what's underneath. The calculation, the careful management of proximity to a man who by the 2000s had decades of institutional knowledge that could have genuinely endangered powerful people. Look at Diddy. When Michael Jackson died, Diddy was one of the first celebrities to appear on camera expressing grief.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he's just somebody that changed my life. You know what I'm saying? Somebody I'll always love and cherish.
He loves Michael. He cherishes Michael. He will always remember Michael. But sit with what we now know about Diddy's actual world. His parties, his operation, the rooms, the people rotating in and out, the staff deleting footage, the Diddy pack traveling across state lines. This is not a man who threw ordinary birthday parties.
I happened to come in at a time where he was throwing his 50th birthday party, and they spent millions of dollars building this outside structure in his backyard in Los Angeles. I couldn't believe, like, wow, I'm a part of this now. Like, it was so, again, exquisite. It was this huge.
But the gloss quickly wore off as his tasks became more sinister.
Michael Jackson moved through those same circles. He was at those events. He was in that world. And Michael Jackson, unlike many of the other people in that world, had a very loud voice and a very large audience. Think about what Diddy knew when he went on camera to talk about how much he loved Michael. He knew what happened at his own parties. He knew who was there. He knew what those rooms looked like. And he knew Michael had been in enough of those spaces to know things that, if they ever came out of Michael's mouth and not some anonymous source, could not be ignored. That soft, almost reverent tone Diddy uses when talking about Michael, that's not just grief, that's caution dressed up as love. Now look at Tom Hanks. In 2020, Ricky Gervais stood on the Golden Globe stage and did something almost nobody in that room had the nerve to do. He told the truth.
Do win an award tonight. Don't use it as a platform to make a political speech, right? You're in no position to lecture the public about anything. You know nothing about the real world. Most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg. So, if you win, right, come up, accept your little award, thank your agent and your God, and fuck off.
The cameras caught Tom Hanks in the audience. His reaction was so uncomfortable, so visibly distressed, that it became a worldwide meme. Ricky later said in a podcast that Hanks looked like he felt above the jokes, like they didn't apply to him. And Ricky made a joke that night, one specific joke, that made the room go quietest of all.
He obviously didn't himself, just like Jeffrey Epstein. Shut up! I know he's your friend, but I don't care.
He said that to the room. He said Epstein is your friend. And Tom Hanks, who was already uncomfortable, looked like the floor had opened up under him. Now fast forward to 2026. The Michael Jackson biopic becomes the biggest biopic in cinema history. It smashes records. It generates the kind of cultural moment that only comes around once a generation. The streets are celebrating.
This movie I've seen this year.
I'm so excited for this movie.
Obviously the music, the dancing, but I want to see the story behind it.
I want to see like how big he was at that time.
It's gonna live up to the wait.
It was honestly incredible. 10 out of 10, no notes.
I cried like 7 times.
That was awesome. Jafar Jackson, give him all the Oscars.
Just get ready for all the tears.
Production, the music, the outfits,
I was honestly blown away. Obviously, it's Michael Jackson. You have high expectations for a movie, and I feel like it exceeded those expectations.
So go see this movie. Don't wait, don't hesitate. Michael Jackson in theaters, baby!
And Tom Hanks posts nothing, not a word, from a man whose entire public persona is built on being America's most decent, most beloved, most publicly enthusiastic human being. Not one syllable about the biggest cultural event of the year. And Oprah Winfrey, who has dedicated her entire career to championing black stories, black excellence, black art, also posts nothing, not one post, about the biggest celebration of a black artist in cinema history. Compare that to who did show up to the premiere. Stevie Wonder, Magic Johnson, Usher, Raven-Symoné, Martin Lawrence, Chance the Rapper. The contrast between who came and who stayed silent tells you everything about who was genuinely celebrating Michael's legacy and who was genuinely relieved that the biopic was about his music and not his knowledge. Now let's talk about the film itself, because what's happening around it is almost as revealing as what's in it. The Michael biopic opened to $218.8 million globally in a single weekend. That is the biggest biopic opening in cinema history. It crushed Oppenheimer's record. It was made by Lionsgate, not Disney, not Universal, not Warner Brothers, a smaller studio that people had written off years ago. Critics gave it a 38% on Rotten Tomatoes. Audiences gave it 96%. A 58-point gap between critics and audiences. Let that land. The people whose opinions are institutionally amplified hated this film. The actual human beings who bought tickets loved it. And the people whose opinions are institutionally amplified, what do they have in common? They are part of the same media ecosystem that spent 30 years rewriting Michael Jackson's story. Ricky Gervais basically predicted this moment years ago. And in February 2026, right after Grammy celebrities used the stage for political speeches nobody asked for, he posted a single image, his 2020 Golden Globes moment, with 6 words. They're still not listening. 6 words. No explanation needed. The audience is not confused. The audience has not forgotten. The audience showed up $226 million strong to say, we remember who Michael Jackson actually was. Now here is where Paris Jackson becomes essential to this story. Paris Jackson, Michael's daughter, actually read the first draft of the script for this biopic. She gave detailed notes. She put real time and real effort into feedback because she has actual personal knowledge of who her father was. They ignored every single note she submitted.
Y'all are gonna like the movie, so just go watch it, go enjoy it, do whatever, leave me out of it.
Wasn't involved at all, aside from like giving feedback on the first draft and then getting the feedback that yeah, we're not actually going to address your issues at all.
Prefer honesty over like sales and monetary gain.
Michael's daughter, who grew up inside the truth of who her father was, who knows the real man behind the public myth. She looked at this film, the film the world is celebrating, the film the estate is promoting, and she said it is full of lies. She didn't say it was slightly inaccurate. She didn't say it took creative liberties. She said outright lies. What lies? What specifically did they change? What parts of Michael Jackson's real story were too uncomfortable to put on screen? Even in a biopic, meant to celebrate him? And the answer, if you've been following everything we've laid out tonight, becomes very clear. They celebrated his music. They celebrated his dancing. They celebrated the spectacle. What they did not celebrate, and will never put in a major studio film, is what Michael Jackson actually knew, who he actually knew it about, and what he was actually saying in those final years when he kept warning that a group of people wanted him gone. Janet Jackson, who knows more about her brother's inner world than almost any person alive, turned down the film entirely, said nothing publicly, showed up to nothing. When the woman who danced with him as a child, who grew up in the same house, who watched the same industry tear her brother apart, when she looks at this film and says no thank you, that tells you something. That tells you that the version of Michael Jackson they put on screen is curated, safe, approved. And the real Michael Jackson, the one Dave Chappelle warned us about, the one who named the monster, the one who said there was a group of people who wanted him gone, that version did not make the final cut. Let's bring this all the way home. Let's draw the full map. Michael Jackson was not destroyed because he was eccentric. He was not destroyed because he changed the color of his skin. He was not destroyed because he built a fairground in his backyard or shared his bed with children he considered friends. He was not even destroyed primarily because of the allegations, which, if you actually look at the evidence or the lack of it, were built on coercion, financial motives, and media amplification. Michael Jackson was destroyed because he did three things that the most powerful people in entertainment could not tolerate. First, he accumulated enough wealth and ownership, including the Sony ATV catalog that contained the Beatles' masters, to be genuinely independent. He didn't need the machine, and men who don't need the machine can say whatever they want. Second, he spent decades inside the rooms where the real business of Hollywood was conducted. He watched, he remembered, he was present for things that were never meant to have witnesses who could walk out and go on a stage in London and start connecting dots publicly. Third, he started talking.
You can imagine now my understanding of the facts surrounding the MJ case that he went to war with Sony, one of these major companies, and he was winning that war. And then suddenly the world was told that Michael Jackson is a
He was winning. And then suddenly the whole narrative shifted. Not gradually, suddenly, like a switch was flipped. Dave Chappelle describes a specific mechanism. The moment you stop being useful to the system labels you crazy, dangerous, anti-Semitic, criminal. And once those labels are attached, the audience's ears close. The witnesses become unreliable narrators. The story belongs to the people with the loudspeakers.
The media, man, it is one hell of an entity. It really can have you thinking that the bad people are good and the good people are bad.
Here is the uncomfortable truth at the center of all of this. Jeffrey Epstein did not operate alone. He operated within a network. That network had parties. That network had guests. That network overlapped with Hollywood, with finance, with media, and with the entertainment industry Michael Jackson spent his entire life inside of. Michael Jackson was not connected to Epstein, but Michael Jackson knew the people who were. He had been in enough rooms, at enough events, over enough decades, to have knowledge that, if he ever chose to deploy it, could have been catastrophic for some very, very powerful people. Diddy is now facing federal charges. His world is currently being dismantled in real time. Harvey Weinstein's empire collapsed entirely. The men Oprah stood beside on red carpets for 20 years are either in prison or facing trial. And Michael Jackson, who named the monster on a stage in London, who warned that a group of people wanted him gone, who died in his bedroom of a drug overdose administered by a doctor who was later convicted of involuntary manslaughter, Michael Jackson is gone, silenced before any of these dominoes started falling. He knew something was coming. He said it on tape, in his own voice, and it did. Now in 2026, when the biggest celebration of his life and legacy is playing in theaters around the world, and the audiences are standing up and crying and singing along in IMAX,
It was honestly incredible. 10 out of 10, no notes.
I cried like 7 times.
the people who should be celebrating loudest are the ones who have gone completely silent. Oprah isn't posting. Tom Hanks isn't posting. The machine that spent 30 years very carefully managing Michael Jackson's image into something they could control, that machine is watching this moment and saying nothing, because there is nothing safe to say. Because if Michael Jackson was right about the industry and the music sales, the box office, and the standing ovations in theaters worldwide seem to suggest that the people believe he was, then everything else he said deserves a second look too.
When people make up stories that I don't want to be who I am, it hurts me. I am proud of my race. I am proud of who I am. I have a lot of pride in who I am and dignity.
That was not a man who had lost his mind. That was a man who was being systematically told by the media, by the people around him, by the industry he helped build, that his version of reality was wrong. And when you look at who was doing the telling and why they had every reason to make sure his voice was discredited before it could do real damage, the picture becomes very, very clear. Dave Chappelle's warning was not about one man. It was about a pattern, a repeating, calculated pattern for what happens to people in this industry when they know too much and stop being manageable. They don't debate you. They don't address your facts. They just make sure no one believes a word you say.
You're not supposed to do this in my business. I'm up here doing something that nobody else in this business has the balls to do. I'm telling you something that you need to know.
He was telling us something we needed to know. We just weren't listening. And now, with Diddy in federal custody, Weinstein in prison, Epstein's network being traced in courtrooms around the world, and a biopic about Michael Jackson breaking every box office record on the planet, while the celebrities who spent years distancing themselves from him sit in total silence. The question isn't whether Michael Jackson was destroyed by a system that feared what he knew. The question is, who is still protecting the people that system was built to serve? And second, if they could do all of this to the most famous entertainer in the history of the world, who else are we still judging today using a script that was never true in the first place? Drop your answer in the comments, because this conversation is just getting started. If this video connected dots that you've been trying to connect for years, share it, because the algorithm buries this kind of content fast. Like, subscribe, and stay locked in because the next video is going deeper. The machine is still running, but the audience is waking up.